When you're reading your friend's work, there is no better note you can give than just go deeper. I think you can do better because you always can. It's always a safe note to give.
Over here.
Good morning, Miss Espenson.
Good morning.
I was sad you had such a short time on Eureka, but then realized you'd moved over to Battlestar, so it was a good trade. You're not in the Walk of Fame this year, and I was wondering if you had a few moments for a public appearance later, maybe an autograph or something simple, just...
You know what, come up, I don't know if they'll let us do it, but if you can come up and find me after this, we can autograph. We're also going to be signing autographs at 1 o'clock at the Austin Browncoats booth. Yeah, I know, why aren't I in the Walk of Fame? I totally want to be there.
It's not because I didn't ask.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted you heading up the parade.
Woo! But yeah, we'll make sure you get an autograph, and yeah.
I'll make some calls.
We actually have very cute promotional photos for husbands. These guys, whipped cream, feathers, you're gonna want them.
They're orgasmic.
I'll take 2.
Hi.
Hello. I've enjoyed all of your work, and I particularly enjoy when there are commentaries on the DVDs where the writer is involved in the commentary. And I like it when they discuss, oh, here's what got cut out, and I'm wondering if there's one scene in particular from any of your work that you think leaving it out just totally changed the direction of the story, and you really wish they left it in because it left out some important information for the audience.
Yes, it was a couplet, a pair of lines. We call it, when there's 2 lines of dialogue next to each other, you call it a couplet, like we're damn Shakespeare or something. But still, it was lines that was left out at the end of A Harsh Light of Day, which is an episode of Buffy. You remember where Buffy goes off to college and she sleeps with that jerk, and he's like not there in the morning, and she's all. And I got a lot of reaction to that of like, too soon. Angel, like, this is slutty Buffy, bad Buffy. What people didn't realize was cut out of the end of it was an exchange between her and Willow, that scene where they're walking on the quad, and she says, oh, Willow, I was so proud of myself because I was doing something without thinking of Angel. The whole time I was thinking, look how I'm not thinking about Angel. I think maybe I was thinking about Angel. And it sort of, I told you a lot about her state in that episode, that it wasn't that she'd forgotten Angel, it was that she was trying so hard to forget Angel. And I think that, even Joss later said, like, yeah, that was kind of important. It's too bad that fell out. But you know, you get in these time crunches where you're like, we can send this today if we can find 15 seconds, and you get really, you look for the 15 seconds. There's also an episode of Battlestar Galactica called The Hub, which had a whole bunch of stuff happen to it, where the episode that I wrote was a mind frack of time distortion. Like, we start at the end of the story, she's ripping the bandage off Baltar, he's gonna bleed to death, and then you go like, well, how did we get here? And you go back, and then it's woven timelines. Sometimes we keep flashing back to her sitting there with Baltar bleeding out, and then we go back to the story. When that was put together and assembled, you couldn't make heads or tails of it. You just was like, why is she here? And then why is she there? So the whole thing was reordered, and in doing that, some stuff fell out just because it didn't make sense. Some lovely shots of her sort of sitting there with Baltar bleeding out that got lost just because of what had to be done to make the episode work. So I'm sure there's beautiful stuff on that particular cutting room floor. Thanks. It makes babies cry to know what's been lost.
That was an excellent. That was an excellent question, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good question.
Morning.
Good morning.
Relatively simple question that hopefully has a long and complex answer. What's your opinion on the end of Battlestar Galactica? You were involved in the writing process. Curious what your thoughts on it were.
I sort of feel as time has gone by, I feel more free to talk about it, but not very free, just a little bit free, which is that my opinion is that at the end, when Kara is suddenly not there, I don't like to think that she faded away. I was the person in the room going, just make it happen on a cut. I don't want to see her fade away on camera because that's too definitive that she is metaphysical. I like physics in my sci-fi, so Yay, physics!
I'm going to tweet that later.
Yeah, I get it.
So my opinion is that Leah Dama turned around for a second. She dropped to the ground in the high weeds and just to the tree line. I like to think that she was created by the Cylons, cloned out of that ovary that they took from her that we never heard about again. Like, how did that thread can't be left loose? I have to assume it was tied up by the reappearance of Kara. So that's what I think happened, but I think Ron Moore would give you a very different answer. But the cool thing about Ron Moore is I think he'd be fine with me having a different opinion on it.
In my sci-fi.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, you look adorable. I love your dress.
Thank you.
Yeah. No. Second of all, I was sort of curious about sort of the beginning of your career. What was the point at which you really started to consider yourself a writer? That you started to introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Jane. I'm a writer.
Yeah, it happened twice. When I got into the Disney program, which is the Disney ABC Writers Fellowship, is a great program for aspiring writers. You should all look into it if you're interested in a career in TV writing. It now requires that you have industry experience, so now you have to move to LA first, but it's still a great program. And in fact, the fact that they raised the bar like that means that it's easier to get in once you have the industry experience because you're not competing against thousands of people or tens of thousands, you're competing against like hundreds. Anyway, I got in that program. Then I start being put on shows. So I worked on a show called Dinosaurs with not the mama. And I worked on a show called Monty, which was Henry Winkler and David Schwimmer and David Krumholtz as a non-Jewish family. Oh, it was adorable. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm a writer. I'm in. Then I didn't get hired during a year, and I was like collecting unemployment, and nothing was happening, and I was going on meetings for the next year, and I was getting nothing, and it was horrible and scary. And then I ran into someone else who had been in the program with me in the hallway at Disney, and I was like, I think maybe I'm not a writer anymore. And he said, well, I'm writing Ellen this year, and your agent hasn't sent me your stuff. Like, send me your stuff. And he hired me on Ellen, and I was back, and I could say writer again. But that's the thing about writer. In the early years of your career, you can write it down. It's what you put on your unemployment form, but you stop believing it if you go a couple years without getting staffed. But it's often part of the process. So if that happens to any of you, soldier on, persevere. You can do it.
Keep calm, keep writing.
Thanks.
Actually, just for a second, I want to ask a kind of a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
What do you write during your writing sprints?
A lot of times I'm writing husbands. Brad and I don't normally sprint at the same time, but I know I like to think that he's sprinting at home when I sprint.
Oh, I sprint, yeah. I do in
I think we all do, don't we? Don't we all sprint along with Jane?
You guys all sprint?
Yeah.
I write lists. I'm not a writer, so I write lists.
And
So,
sometimes
keeps
I
me
want to
organized.
sprint, and I want to initiate a sprint, like I'm about to start writing, and I'm like, I'm about to do a Jane Espenson style sprint, but then I'm afraid that people are going to think that I'm like jocking her style. So I'm like, I'm just going to sprint alone by myself. But then when you sprint, I'm like, yeah, I'm sprinting too.
I love that. I love when we're writing together. Yeah, because we write husbands together, but not in the same room usually. Like I write a thing and then he rewrites me, and then vice versa. So we're perfectly able to write at the same time. We're just sort of writing on different pieces. A lot of times I'm doing that. A lot of times I'm doing Once Upon a Time. Sometimes there may be comic book writing to do. I do Buffy comics and other things. And sometimes it's like a friend may say, like, I'm putting together a sketch show, write a sketch for something, and so some weird thing that you don't. Oh, and sometimes I'm doing something like, did you go hear the announcement about Star Wars Detours? This new Star Wars animated show that I'm working on. Sometimes I may be doing something like that, something top secret nobody knows about.
Well, it's Seth Green's Star Wars project, and it's sort of like Robot Chicken in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, look for it. Star Wars Detours. They announced it at Star Wars Celebration last week, and it completed my set because I've written for the Torchwood Doctor Who universe, Battlestar, Star Trek, Star Wars, and the Buffyverse, Firefly. So I figure like I've got space covered. So husband's gonna be. I'm starting to encroach on romantic comedy, and we'll see.
When's there gonna be like a Jane verse? Like Espenson verse? Like seriously. It's your turn.
You are Jane-verse.
True.
Well, wait, but doesn't, I mean, working in every single, like, sci-fi universe, I mean, doesn't that make you,
Omniverse.
like, technically a god? Or, I mean, right?
No, I think not. I've been very, very, very lucky. The thing is, you get one of those collector cards, then other people know you want to collect them, and they start trading with you. And then next thing you know, there you are on the Death Star.
So what I'm hearing is that you may succeed George Lucas for us.
I mean, what?
You may take over where George Lucas retires.
I can't. That crown is so heavy that it would fall down over my shoulders. So
That's a tough beard to follow. Isn't
it's
it?
a tough one. No, the truth is actually that I much prefer writing in someone else's world than creating my own, because there's nothing more wonderful than looking at the gorgeous world that Joss Whedon or Ron Moore or someone created and just going like, oh, I get to play in this sandbox, and like Starbuck, like I don't know if I could create something as wonderful as Starbuck. Starbuck is this beautiful, damaged little creature, and I love jumping in and getting to play with those existing characters and going, okay, what's 4 more layers down? I love that stuff. And I would not have done Husbands, I would not have created Husbands, except it came from Brad. So he brought me these beautiful characters, and so I got to do the same thing again, where it's like, I don't have to build the sandcastle from scratch. I'm given a beautiful dollhouse, and I can play with the dolls.
So basically, it's like a career made out of fan fiction.
It does feel like fan fiction. There was an episode of Buffy that I wrote. Oh, it was the same one, Harsh Light of Day, that someone that we were talking about, where I was like, okay, in this scene, it's like Spike and Harmony having sexy talk, and then in this scene is going to be like Buffy getting sexy with the boy, and then I was like, I'm writing fanfic, and I like it. It was that way. Just look at every scene in that episode; it would fit perfectly in fanfic.
That needs to be a song. I'm writing fanfic and I like it. All right. We've kept you patiently waiting. Please ask your question.
Take your time. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
My question is about husbands, so for all 3 of you. It looks adorable, by the way, and if you can get Joss Whedon and John Hodgman in one place, you have my heart. I am on it. My question is, did the idea for Husband arise out of the idea to put more gay characters on television to assist with the acceptance of gay canoodling, like the clip said? Or was it just 2 characters and a story that happened to both be men?
It was sort of the second of those 2, but you cannot help morphing into the first of those 2 when you realize what you're writing. That would be how I'd describe it. What would you say, Brad?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely the second. It was, hey, here's a great story, and it happens to be 2 guys, and that's different. And there is not a story right now with the 2 central characters being gay and it being about them being in love. If they have a baby or something, which is a different story. And when we made that, it was sort of the reaction to that, like, oh, you can never do this. This won't work. No. Television doesn't want this. And then,
Appropriate is not the word.
Well, yeah. And you should see, unfortunately, we didn't have one on this hard drive, but episode 1 of that, which you can see at lovehusbands.com.
Oh my God, we haven't said Love Husbands.
Lovehusbands.com. You can see it there, and that sets up really well basically what our experience was when we made the show. And the reaction from the industry was kind of like, yeah, nobody wants to see gay people being gay. We want to see them shopping with their gal pals or fretting over their Chinese baby,
It's just not sexy at all.
Yeah.
Not sexy.
And Joss has a really big monologue about that in episode 1, so it's really great.
So yeah, in a way that we didn't really consciously set out to do, we made the story of of season 2 the story of the show, like the making of the show, the reaction to the show. So we ended up, as much as we started out with, we just want to entertain America or the world, because it's online, so it goes everywhere. We ended up with and hey, we got stuff to say, and we're a little mad. And Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
I'm a little nervous. I think you're amazing. I'm an amateur writer. I follow you on Twitter. I will sometimes sprint with you.
Yay!
How do I turn my small portfolio of writing, directing short films into something that pays, even if practically minimum wage at the very bottom? How do you get into the industry at all?
I think it's easier to get paid $1 trillion than to get paid minimum wage. So I think what you got to do, I don't know, this could be terrible advice. This is coming straight out of my little pink bottom, but I think that putting it online, getting it out, getting it to film festivals, like all that stuff, even though it's a huge hassle, like getting yourself some visibility, getting yourself some fans, and then sort of parlaying that into coming to Hollywood with a bit of a resume might be the better route than saying like I'm willing, and sort of get big in that world and then come to Hollywood might be a more exciting, productive route than like moving to LA and becoming an assistant in an agency because you've already got stuff going on. But I don't know. The thing is right now, it's so hard to tell. Nobody can tell yet what internet success is going to mean in terms of transitioning into a traditional TV job. I think very soon that won't even be the goal. Internet stardom will be bigger than TV stardom because the internet's bigger. So I don't have a great answer for you, but just try everything. Don't make any assumptions, I guess. It's just like explore every avenue. And don't assume the traditional avenue is even going to be there 5 years from now. So
I like your answer.
oh, good. Yay. I'll stop talking then. I could just keep going.
Please don't stop talking. We love it. Yes, sir.
Ron Moore, Russell T. Davies, Joss Whedon, Shag, Marry, Kill.
Shag Joss Whedon for sure.
Oh my God. Yeah, shag Joss Whedon. Marry Russell Davies and kill Ron? Isn't there a version of it that's like slap, tickle, fondle?
That's fun.
Slap, tickle, fondle. What's wrong with that? You can't just walk into that and not give the answer. I want to know.
Cheeks can answer that.
I want to do all three of them to Joss Whedon.
I was just thinking about, maybe 3 weeks from now, I'll be sitting there watching like Warehouse 13 or something, and I'll see, written, created by Jane Espenson, tonight's episode, Slap, Tickle, Fondle. It's like, I can only imagine what that R effect looks like. Oh, next question.
Hard to follow that. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
This is kind of a question for Jane. Sorry, guys. The dialogue that you and your writing partners produce seems to be as funny as possible while still being naturalistic. And I was just wondering, what's your process there, and how are you inspired? How do you find those funny lines?
That's actually not just a question for me because Cheeks does a lot of the joke writing on Husbands, and so I think we both have very similar processes. I know I learned to do that by working in sitcoms for 5 seasons before I got into drama, and that teaches you to write a joke. It teaches you to often write a very hard joke, which means that it's a setup punch, ba-dum-bum joke. But it has to be on character, perfectly on character. If you look at the jokes on Frasier or Friends, you can't just move them around and go like, Phoebe's off today, Chandler's gonna take all their jokes. Like, it's not gonna work. So you learn to write really specific character-based jokes, and that's step one. Then you go to dramas. Now you actually have a chance of hearing your jokes on screen because they're not being constantly put through the rewrite mill of half hour. Now you get to actually go the next step, which is to say, okay, how would I really say this? How would a human being say this? And do you know how Doonesbury cartoons have a different rhythm than like Marmaduke or something? Or even another 3-panel one. In Doonesbury, like the funniest line is often in the next to the last panel, and then the last panel is like a dry comment on it. And that's what gives it that sophisticated adult rhythm. It's almost Sorkin-y, where the characters have that great